Akinwumi Adesina is the 8th elected president of the African Development Bank Group and formerly served as Nigeria's Minister for Agriculture and Rural Development. Dr. Adesina joins me in the studio to tell us more about his vision for Africa's growth and development. Welcome to Africa 54.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start right there. How much have you been able to achieve since you took over the presidency of ADB in terms of Africa's growth?
Well, first and foremost, let me say that we have very strong support all across Africa for the high-five strategies that I've laid out for the bank, which is to light up and empower Africa, to feed Africa, to industrialize Africa, to integrate Africa, and to improve the quality of life of the people of Africa. Just straight to the point, if you take a look at what we've done in terms of actual delivery on the ground, look in terms of connections to electricity, just last year, we connected 4.4 million people to electricity. If you look in terms of those that benefited from agricultural interventions, that's way over 8.5 million people. And one of the areas that we invest a lot on is on infrastructure. We had way over 14 million people that benefited for improved access to infrastructure for transport, and way over 8 million people that got access to improved water and sanitation. And one of the areas that I'm most proud of the reforms that we've done, it was we've done for the income of the bank. The income of the bank is a real upside. Our income last year was 60% over what it was the year before.
So not everything is gloomy in Africa in terms of economy and development, but let's look at new technology, because I know you're a big advocate for new technology.
Absolutely.
How has that transformed the agricultural sector in your country of Nigeria?
Well, you know, I mean, when I was minister in Nigeria, one of the things that I did was I made sure that farmers got access to fertilizers using mobile phones, and that has gone global, by the way. You know, we at the African Development Bank are taking that model, you know, to several African countries. The World Bank has taken it to Afghanistan. But beyond that, electronic wallet technology, which allows you to use digital technology to access technology, information, and also high-performing technologies. We've also moved as a bank to scale up technologies. See, the technologies that Africa needs to feed itself are there. They're just sitting on the table, right? So the bank launched just this year a big $1 billion US dollar program that's called Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation. The whole idea is to take technologies and make sure that you use them across agroecological zones instead of just one country at a time. No. So I think we're doing very well in terms of technology for farmers.
You are here in the U.S., and there's been a lot of debate on how Africa and the U.S. trade with each other. What would you like to see happening in terms of U.S.-Africa trade to benefit the continent? Well,
first and foremost, I think it's great that the U.S. Congress extended the African Growth and Opportunity Act to 2025. Now, as we look towards that, however, the issue is the game has changed. Africa now has a continental free trade area that will make Africa, continental free trade area about $3 trillion. That's going to be the largest in the world. So I think in terms of relationship with the United States, I would rather see the United States government relating with the continental free trade area so that Africa can actually compete and also have a more leveraging power in negotiations. But I can tell you that American investments are expected to increase significantly in Africa, in agriculture, in energy, and also on infrastructure. And so that is why we have actually set up something called the Africa Investment Forum, which is to leverage global pension funds and sovereign wealth funds to Africa. And I expect U.S. investors were very keen to invest a lot more in Africa.
Dr. Adesina, everything sounds very positive, but one may want to question one thing. What stands in the way of Africa having food security?
Well, you know, I think it's sheer political will. You look at China. China drew 400 million people out of poverty in less than 10 years. I think success stories are emerging in different parts of Africa. The key is to, I would say, change the lenses with which we look at agriculture. That agriculture is not a way of life. It's not a social sector. It's a business. You know, the size of that food and agricultural market is going to be worth $3 trillion by 2030. So African governments have to really change how to look at agriculture, get more private sector in, and invest a lot more in younger, more entrepreneurial farmers.
And very briefly, how about doing intra-Africa trade? We don't hear much of that as we look to the U.S. How are we doing as a continent trading with each other?
As I said, you know, the continental free trade area is the best decision that Africa has made. You know, the trade between Africa and itself is only about 14%. But with the continental free trade area, that will rise to about 52%. And that's going to be a zone, as I said, of $3 trillion. So the bank is investing a lot in infrastructure to connect countries to each other. So very, very good thing for Africa to trade itself, not just with other parts of the world.
Dr. Adesina, I wish we had more time to discuss this. Thank you very much for coming on Africa 54.
You're most welcome.